Hey guys, welcome to Big Laws Official. Today on Talking Strongman, we have a very, very special guest, Alan Thrall, the owner of Untamed Strength. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I'm feeling a little bit inadequate right now with this beard of yours going on. I feel like I'm not able to be competitive at all in this department.
Yours is probably much easier to maintain and to work with in the gym. So,
I've
so
got
yeah,
the bald head, so that makes it easy to maintain anyway. So you're
yeah, really, yeah, of course. You're not spending money on shampoo.
definitely not. Now, how's things though? You good?
I'm good. Yeah, despite everything going on, I'm doing really well,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Have you because you do compete in strongman, don't you? You're not just, I mean, obviously everyone knows your YouTube page, which is awesome, by the way. I've used a number of your kind of instructional videos for a lot of my clients. So
Wow.
they'll be excited to see you on today. But it's a great channel. But you actually do compete yourself. You've done a number of competitions in various different sports, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done strongman, powerlifting. I've done a Olympic weightlifting meet. Um, And so, primarily it's strongman, but there have been times where I'll just get an itch to really simplify training and say, hey, I'm just going to focus on barbell lifts and train for a powerlifting meet.
Cool.
But I got into strongman before I got into powerlifting or anything else like that.
Well, take me back to the start. Sort of when did you realize that the kind of training, the strength training, and that kind of side of fitness was something you really wanted to pursue?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to tell the story of me getting into strongman and opening Untamed Strength without being long winded.
Oh,
So
that's
I
fine.
assume
We got plenty of time.
I assume you brought me on the podcast to talk. So
Yeah,
if you're okay with
definitely.
me, storytelling, I will.
Please go for
But
it.
yeah, I think a good time to talk about, I guess, when I got into strongman would be to go back to when I joined the United States Marine Corps. The first few months, first several months of being a new Marine, you're inundated with training. It's training, 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 24/7, no time off. And when I say training, I mean military training, not
Yeah.
gym training. And you go through boot camp for the first few months. You go to School of Infantry for the next few months. No days off. Eventually, in School of Infantry, you do get some time off in the form of weekends off.
Okay.
And I guess I have to kind of paint this picture before explaining all this. But if you were to so new Marines are 18 and 19-year-old boys, girls too, but on my side of the country, it was only boys. There were no girls in training. So you got these 18 and 19-year-old boys who have been locked down doing rigorous training for the past several months. And every 2 weeks, they're getting this paycheck that comes in, $1,000, $1,200 goes in their account. And they've had no way of spending this money, right? We're not paying apartment rent, mortgage, room and board, no living expenses. We're not paying for food because you're eating at the chow hall. So this money is just kind of adding up over these past several months. And when you tell these boys, teenagers, men, but still teenagers, when you tell these boys, hey, you've got the weekend off, they're going to go buck wild and they're going to let loose. And so, we'd have the weekends off and everyone would go into town, spend as much money as they can. They'd go spend it on food, booze, and liquor, even though they weren't of age. They'd go get hotel rooms. They'd get tattoos. Some of them would buy new cars.
Yeah.
And and I think the favorite activity was to go to strip clubs.
Okay.
And these Marines would go out, on their time off, and it wasn't uncommon for a Marine to spend $1,000 at a strip club,
Sure.
just blow a whole paycheck. A lot of these guys, this is the first paycheck they've received. Marine Corps is the first job they've ever had. So, anyways, this is kind of the setting for the whole story of I wasn't into any of that, and so I would rather stay back on base and save my money.
Okay.
Right. I didn't want to partake in any of that. And so when I would stay back on base, there wasn't a whole lot to do on base, but there was a gym. So I started going back to the gym. And when I first went back to the gym, after not being in the gym for quite a while, it was nostalgic for me. I felt like I was back home training. But the gym also became a place of freedom for me. I could go into the gym and do whatever I wanted at my own pace. I could go do some
Did
squats, go do some
did you
cleans.
train before you were in the Marines?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Yeah.
It was just strictly for football,
Okay.
American football. So I had got into weight training in probably middle school, 8th grade. And that was because the high school football coach had come to our middle school and encouraged us to weight train. He invited us to the high school to do weight training. And so I was weight training seriously because I was playing American football. And that was really the only reason. I loved playing football, and I knew lifting weights would make me a better football player. So I did that. And once I stopped playing football, I didn't really see a point in lifting weights. I didn't get much enjoyment out of it.
Okay.
But now, at my time in the Marine Corps now that I'm going back to the gym, it kind of, again, reminded me of home, and it was nostalgic for me. And I really enjoyed being back at the gym. And I slowly started to fall in love with being in the gym, more so than I ever have in my life. And I would look forward to training on the weekends. I'd look forward to the weekends so that I can train. I think an important thing to mention also is, on base, other than the gym, there was this mini mart kind of corner store, PX. And I would go in there and I'd buy muscle and fitness magazines, and I'd read those, on my off time.
I remember those days.
Yeah. I didn't have, the internet was around, of course, but I didn't have the internet. I didn't have a smartphone. So I'd read these magazines. And I remember one muscle and fitness magazine, Derek Poundstone was featured. Yeah. And he was in there talking about his training, his strongman training. He was talking a little bit about diet and nutrition. And I was immediately attracted to this style of training. I remember another magazine featured Matt Krojaleski, Matt Kroc. And while he was not a strongman, he was a powerlifter. Yeah. At that time, I didn't know, for all I knew, powerlifting and strongman was the same thing. But Matt in this magazine was doing a lot of strongman-esque training. He was doing deadlifts. He was doing lunges with this log on his back. He would do, 200-pound one-arm dumbbell rows, croc rows, and he would do farmer's carries. And so this was my first exposure to reading about strongman training. I had seen it on TV, but I had never, read about it. And both of these guys were talking about how much food they eat in order to get big and strong. And that at the time blew my mind, because previously all I had known is eat chicken breasts and you try to get a six pack. So these guys are talking about how much food they were eating in order to get bigger and stronger. And so I took that as gospel. And from then on, I made eating and gaining weight a job for me. And so, I just continued training in the gym. I continued eating, and I tried to kind of mimic this strongman training that they talk about. And this slowly became my identity in the Marine Corps. My friends, in the Marine Corps would say, excuse my language, they say, Thrall, you're boring as fuck. All you want to do is go to the gym on the weekends. Yeah. You want to go to bed early so that you can wake up in the morning, go to the chow hall, eat a big breakfast, and have a big training session. That was all I really cared about. We'd be out in the field eating MREs, and all the food that the guys would eat, they'd say, "Hey, give it to Thrall, he'll eat it." So again, this was kind of like a new identity for me. I felt like I was a new person, and I loved it, and I became obsessed with it. And so I guess if we move along the story, after training there, I went to Virginia. And I eventually found myself in Washington, D.C., standing guard, standing post. So I would guard a building in Washington, D.C. for 12-hour shifts. So, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., night shift, just stand 12 hours, long shifts. You had 30 minutes for lunch. That was it. And thankfully, on one block, I was posted with another Marine named Josh Clark. And when you are standing with another person for 12-hour shifts, 10 days straight, in the middle of the night, you get to know them. Sure. And so he liked lifting weights, thankfully. So all we did was talk about lifting weights, and he became my first training partner. We would, go to the gym together, and he taught me about, told me more about powerlifting and strongman, and kind of actually the difference between the two. Yeah. And he taught me a lot about programming. Again, I'd go train with him in the gym. Josh Clark actually made an Atlas stone in his barracks room and left it behind a building. So he would mix a little bit of the mix in a bucket in his room. He'd run downstairs and he'd put it in a stone mold, and then he'd go back up and he'd mix some and come back down. It was a horribly made stone.
That's some effort to go to make a stone.
Yeah, it was dusty. It would sit in wet grass, so it had some mold or some moss on the bottom. But I started trying to do stone loads with Josh, and I had seen Atlas stone loads on World's Strongest Man, but at the time I thought that equipment was reserved for World's Strongest Man only. I didn't know that you can make your own. So this was kind of a way for me to mimic what those guys were doing. And so, Josh and I would try to pick this stone up and load onto a picnic table. And as stupid as that sounds, picking up a stone, putting it on a picnic table, I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. Now, fast forward even more, we're getting closer to my story of opening the gym, but I eventually went to Camp David. And Camp David is a presidential retreat. And while I was there, a common punishment for, our chain of command, when they punish us was we had to clean. They'd say, hey, the gym's closed, you're off work, but the gym's closed. You got to stay and clean the barracks, clean your weapons. And so they knew some of us like going to the gym, so they'd say the gym's closed. Also, because it was a presidential retreat, if we knew the president was coming up there, we had to close the gym, clean it, make sure it was spotless for him. We couldn't use it. When the president was there with his friends, family, and guests, they would use the gym, so we had to stay away. So the gym was being closed a lot. Well, my roommate and I had found on base behind a building an old tractor tire, and it was a big tire. I'd say the tire was 550 to 600 pounds, sure. Probably a 250 kilo tire. It's a decent size, for first time flipping a tire. And we would use this tire as our workouts. We'd say, hey, today's leg day, gym's closed. Let's do 50 tire flips each. And no matter how long it took, he'd do 5, I'd do 5. He'd do 5, I'd do 5. And we would just, our legs would be, wobbling at the end of it, trying to flip this tire, There was also a telephone pole, a segment of a telephone pole. And we would actually, do a fingerless finger to get it in the vertical position, Steinborn squat it onto our back and try to do squats with it. So looking back on, initially starting Strongman, this Atlas stone that Josh had, this telephone pole, and this tractor tire were the pieces of equipment that I was training with. And it was out of necessity. It wasn't that I got a membership at a well-equipped gym and, used a Rogue Fitness log or something like that.
Yeah.
I was using this junk out of necessity and I loved it. Anyways, while I was at Camp David, I found out that there were local amateur strongman competitions, which again blew my mind because I thought that this was only World's Strongest Man.
How long ago is it? I mean, how old are you? I don't even know how old
I'm 31.
31. Okay. So you're a little bit younger than me. Because I remember when I started, it wasn't like now where you can walk into almost any gym and there's some loadable strongman equipment in the corner. It was literally, I had to make all my own equipment. You're trying to find these weird places, out in the middle of nowhere where certain people you heard like some people did some strongman training. It wasn't popular like it is these days, and with lots and lots of gyms to use. So it's quite interesting hearing these stories, because I remember when I started, my Atlas Stone platform was just some pallets that, that was my stone platform. The stones, you couldn't buy stones back then. It was literally figure out how to make a mold and then just try and chuck a load of concrete on and see how it kind of turned out. And my first attempt at making an Atlas stone was terrible. I was trying to make it in my mum's garden, and my neighbor came out. He's just looking at me as, Laurence, what are you doing? And I was kind of telling him, I'm not a real DIY person. I was kind of, he just like looked at me. He's like, nah, that's not going to work. And he was right. I think the stone lasted a couple of lifts and it just broke. But
I try not to give the back in my day speech, because I'm not that old. But
you've been doing it a while now, so
this was probably 2009, 2010. This story I'm telling, and even just in the past 5 years, how much strongman has evolved is wild.
It really has. I mean, I can sit here and go back in the day because I've been doing it for so long now. But I'm not like ancient or anything. I still love training, and I just kind of joke about, I think it's the gray that kind of comes out. But I've been doing the sport a long time, and just the changes in it have been huge. Yeah. The facilities that people have to train in now for strongman are excellent. Whereas even like you say, 2010, 2008, 2009, 2010, it was just starting to kind of get that rumble. Guys like Derek Poundstone coming on the scenes, and Mariusz Pudzianowski obviously a bit before then. But we didn't have the guys like Brian Shaw, who sort of really took it up on another level, and then Thor Bjornsson, Eddie Hall, these kind of guys that really got some recognition for the sport. It was still very, very niche back then.
Yeah, and I can really appreciate it. I've appreciated how far it's come, but I just look back on, my first couple of competitions. I signed up for these competitions, some of them not knowing what the events were. And then some of the other event competitions on the entry form, when you'd have to mail in your entry form, I didn't know what the events were. I'm trying to, what the hell's a Husafel stone? What in the world is that? And so I would show up to these competitions not knowing how to do this stuff. And it was a way to network and meet other people. And that's how I found my first strongman gym that I trained at, was going to these competitions and seeing that, wow, there's all these other guys who like doing this stuff. Hey, I'm in this area. Where's there a gym? And I found actually a park where there was a group of guys who'd bring out strongman stuff on the weekends. And I found a gym. So I started training there. But I think that, being a bit naive, or I guess unprepared, was kind of the enjoyment of it. I'm sure, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I'm sure that you've done so much log press, so many Atlas stone loads, so much this, so much that you know exactly what you're capable of. And so you're going into competition hoping that you live up to that or surpass it. But when you go to a strongman competition, having never done it before, it's a lot of fun, because you're like, I'm just going to give it a go and I'm going to try my best.
Yeah.
And I'm spending hours and hours in the gym trying to get stronger. Let me go see how this transfers over. Let me go see how athletic I think I am, when I try this. And so to almost not have any sort of standard, is really, really fun. And, I host competitions, at Untamed Strength, and not just at Untamed Strength, but around the area. And some of these new guys who are, signing up for the novice class will send me emails like,
I know.
What brand log are we using and stuff like that. I'm like, come on, man. Don't worry about that. Just wanting to know all the small details, and it's silly,
I had this
so
conversation with JF Karan, and him and I are very, very similar age, both been doing it a long time. And, he runs a lot of competitions as well. And it drives him nuts when he gets these messages from people asking all the small details. Because like you say, especially when you're starting out, I mean, and I say this even now, I've been to World's Strongest Man without knowing, all the events will change when you get there. I've done Champions League competitions without knowing the events at all. And it's like you say, if you're strong and you're well prepared, you'll be fine. Obviously, we don't want World's Strongest Man to be like that. We want people to know the events and train for them. But when you're starting out and you're a complete novice and you're just there to have fun and learn and get some experience, just get stuck in and have some fun. Don't overthink too much. That's why one of the reasons I love some of your videos. You see the comments, people always want perfectly calibrated weights or like the perfect bar. In strongman, you'll be lifting in a car park that's slanting down sideways on trying to squat an axle or something like that. It's I've done World's Strongest Man on an axle that the flooring was not level at all. It was certainly slanting one way. We had an earthquake go on while we were.
Oh my God.
It's and in some ways I love that about strongman, because then you get the powerlifting side of things where everything is regimented, it's the same equipment, and that's great. But I like that variety in strongman where you can almost have the same event but in a different contest with different equipment. It feels completely different, and you've got to be able to adapt very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of torn between, being a fan. I think for the spectator or the fan in me, I like having the competitors not know what the events are going to be. As a competitor, not so much. And I'm only competing at local levels, but I understand what Jeff Capes was saying in the interview with you, saying that he doesn't think they should know events beforehand.
Yeah.
And then, if you watch Brian's recent videos, he expresses his frustration with World's Strongest Man for not giving them more details on the events this year. And I understand where Brian's coming from, especially because, competitions, maybe, World's Strongest Man, but especially Giants Live and things like that are such heavy competitions.
Yeah.
You need to be prepared. And if you have yoke walk and Brian's out here doing a bunch of runs with 800 pounds, trying to work on his speed, and then they say, okay, you're doing a 10-meter yoke walk with 1,100 pounds, and he's thinking, I haven't even touched near that in a year. It's just not a recipe for disaster. So I think that giving them some more so that they can adequately train for this event, because nobody wants to see, these guys get injured on the second event. You know what I mean?
No.
So let them prepare, let them know, at least what the event's going to look like.
I totally agree. And I've got similar thoughts in that when I'm competing, I like to know the events. But as a fan, I quite like the idea of, I've sort of put this to a few people. I'd like to see not World's Strongest Man. I think World's Strongest Man, that's your world championship, if you like. That's the pinnacle. I think for those type of events, we need to know the events. The guys need time to train, because there you want the best performances. But I think as a separate competition, it would be good to have one where there's like 20 events in a hat and we pick out 6 and nobody knows what they're going to be until they get there. Just a little bit lighter, bring the weights down so it's not got that danger factor of trying to do, a 1,200-pound yoke or something like that, because those are things you really need to prepare for. But most pro strongmen, they're going to be fine with an 800 to 1,000-pound yoke. It's something they're used to doing on a regular basis. So you bring those numbers into a little bit of a safer region, and then, just on the day, maybe you'll have a truck pull, maybe it'll be a natural stone lift rather than atlas stone lift. Just 6 different events just to keep it exciting rather than seeing the same things all the time.
Yeah, I think they've done better in recent competitions. I think including the anvil and the loading medley, or the Rogue made those you had to do the double hand dumbbell press.
Yeah,
just odd things that you're probably not doing in your own training that they throw into a medley. I think that's cool. What I really liked in the older competitions, I actually made a recent video with a whole bunch of clips of old strongman competitions, and I really liked the regional events, like the Africa Stone, or I forget the locations, but they had to do a truck pull full of sugar cane, because that was native to the country you guys were in, and then the Viking press with the coconuts and stuff like that. I think that stuff is fun. So
yeah, definitely. That was when I was a fan, probably the 90s. That was when I was really watching the most strongman. I think as a younger, teenager. Got to think now. But I do remember watching those competitions, watching guys like Magnus Samuelsson, Magnus Ver Magnusson, Gerrit Badenhorst, and they're competing in all these different luxury locations, but you had a slight twist to the events depending on where they were in the world, and it did make it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw your video recently with you comparing yourself to the guys. Was it from 95?
Yeah. It was. I could have won World's Strongest Man in 1995, and it was actually a joke, because someone at the guys with the gym were talking about, they were looking at seeing clips or whatnot on Instagram of old strongman competitions, and kind of like teasing how much weight they were using, saying they weren't using a whole lot of weight.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of rolling my eyes like, hey, that was the time. And anyways, it has come along. It has come a long way.
Those guys didn't have the luxury of training with kit all the time,
yeah.
and the technique that we know now, and the improvements. It was literally, like you say, like the novice guys just going into a competition without knowing, lifting a log without having. If you go back and watch those videos, the technique you see on some of the lifting is atrocious.
Yeah, the log was kind of like a strong power curl. And in fact, I love watching those World's Strongest Man competitions, even if I've seen them a bunch of times. And I was watching one, I think it was 2003, and they had to do a log medley, similar to what they're going to have to do this year, 4 logs. And one thing that caught my eye was all the logs were laying flat on the ground.
Yeah.
So you can't get your feet under it and get them. You have to bend, real far forward to pick this thing up. And I thought, man, you don't see that nowadays. It's usually propped up on crash pads or whatnot.
We're quite spoiled now.
Yeah. It seems it's moved into much more of a sport now. I would say maybe the 90s, definitely the 80s. It was just more of a show. Hey, let's grab all these different guys from different strength sports or whatnot, and put them in this competition, this contest, and see how they do. But now, there are plenty of guys who make a living, and some make a really good living off of strongman. So yeah, it should be more standardized because of that.
Yeah, we've really seen the improvements over the last few years. It still needs to get better. I mean, I can tell you, like, from experience competing at some of these top shows, things need to improve, but there have been improvements. That's you got to be fair and say that, because if I go back to when I started and think of what it was like then, some of the new guys would just be shocked.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
It's,
Yeah. Even talking with a couple of Untamed Strength members who were at nationals this past weekend, uh, um, again, like most competitions, just not having much of anything to warm up on,
mm,
getting a little bit of time to use some of the implements, and then, hopping to contest weight. And it's tough. It's frustrating. I know it is too from competing myself. But I can't imagine, I have a log in Untamed Strength. That's an old log. It weighs 230 pounds, 105 kilos without any weight in it. And so I imagine you competed in plenty of competitions where you didn't have anything to warm up on, yeah, you probably didn't have your band kits and whatnot. I don't know what the hell you guys used, but
back then it was literally, there's a funny, I think there's a YouTube video actually comparing like a warm-up of a strongman and a powerlifter. And the powerlifter's kind of going through how he foam rolls and, does mobility and, glute activation stuff before training. And then it says like goes to the strongman, how do you warm up for a truck pull? And the strongman goes, I walk to the truck.
That sounds about right.
And that, yeah, especially back then, that was it. It was like, you just, hold this. I'll just go and do this and then back out. But
yeah,
since Rogue have got involved, there's a lot better warm-up facilities now at World's Strongest Man. I think Rogue are doing a good job, particularly like at the Arnold's where they brought the Wheel of Pain. I thought that was an incredible event, really cool, not something that people can really train on.
Right.
And I think we need a few more really impressive looking events like that.
Yeah. And I think that if Rogue wants Strongman to do better, and Rogue wants, I'm just naming a company, but if Rogue wants Strongman to pull 500 kilos, 502 kilos, 503 kilos, they've got to prepare their athletes and give them, the best opportunity to do so. Because honestly, the better Strongman does, the better Rogue Fitness does, So it's it's in their favor to equip everyone in these competitions.
Definitely. Anyway, I've taken you off track on your story of Untamed Strength, so we'll go back.
So I mean, that was the I'd say the story of how I got into Strongman. I think that so after I started competing in these shows and training and just again being obsessed with that lifestyle, in this period of time that I'm telling you about, I went from 165 pounds body weight to 255 pounds body weight. It's 90 pounds. It's 40 kilos of body weight gain. So yeah, so I was again, I felt like I was a new man, and this was kind of my new identity, and all I cared about was lifting weights and whatnot. And I had the opportunity while I was at Camp David. I went to a training course where a bunch of other Marines from different companies came together to do the training course. And I met the leader or the guide of the Marine Corps Body Bears. The Body Bears are Marines who conduct funerals at Arlington Cemetery. They're the casket bearers for fallen Marines.
Yep.
And he approached me. So these Marines, Marine Corps Body Bears, are some of the biggest, strongest Marines in the Marine Corps. He approached me and he said, "Do you know who the Body Bears are?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you think you could pass an initial strength test?" So I asked him what the strength test was. He told me. I said, "Yeah, I could pass that." And so he said, "Meet me down at the gym on our lunch break and you'll do the test." And I passed, and he said, "Do you want to be a body bearer?" And I did. So I was sent from Camp David to finish out my contract as a Marine Corps body bearer. So my job was to eat, train, practice funerals, and conduct funerals all day. And I did that for the rest of my contract. And so I knew that my time was approaching in the Marine Corps to make the decision of what am I going to do now? Am I going to re-up and do another 4 years in the Marine Corps, or am I going to get out and do something? And I knew without hesitation that I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps.
Sure.
And so the question became, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back home and just start from scratch? But it made up my mind that I wanted to start my own strongman gym. And so I did that as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps. And thankfully, we can talk more about, starting the gym and whatnot, but thankfully those several years, as well as years before the Marine Corps of, quote, Thrall being boring as fuck, I was able to save quite a bit of money, and that definitely helped with starting the gym. So I did that when I got out of the Marine Corps.
I was going to say, I mean, there's not many successful gyms that just focus on strongman as heavily as yours does. most gyms have a little section for strongman, but you're almost so. I mean, I know you have lots of different athletes there, but you're almost like a solely focused strongman gym. You're not like a bodybuilding gym or a CrossFit gym as much, are you?
Right. So I think that I would say that the biggest mistake that I made at first, I wanted to start a strongman gym, but I didn't think many people would join.
Yeah.
And so at first for the first year at least, I tried to just cater to everyone, because I wanted everyone to come. So I would say even my business card, old business cards, it's a powerlifting gym, it's a strongman gym, it's a Olympic weightlifting gym, athletic training, boot camp, whatever it is, I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the truth
through
was,
the door.
yeah, exactly. But the truth is, it was really none of those things other than a pretty good strongman gym, because strongman equipment, you can find tires, you can make stones, you can make sandbags, you can make a lot of this equipment or acquire it. And so I had a lot of that stuff, but I didn't have all the other stuff to make this a great gym. And I think it confused a lot of people, because when you try to cater to everyone, you just get a whole bunch of random people in the gym and nothing really sticks. And it wasn't until my girlfriend, who's now my wife, said to me, I was telling her, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I've done everything, all forms of marketing that I know I'm supposed to do. I don't know where to go from here. How do I get more members? How do I get any members really? And she said, at the time I was still competing in competitions, and she said, why don't you just host one of those competitions that you compete in? And initially I thought, what, I can't do that. I can't do that. But with some convincing, I did. And after I hosted my first strongman competition there and saw the response that it got, and a lot of people were coming in and saying, man, I live right down the street. I had no idea this thing was here. And I'm like, I've been here for a year and a half, man. You didn't know it was here, And so at that point, I said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to cater to strongman, and I want to be a strongman gym. And I couldn't say many good things about my gym when I first started, but I could say that it was the gym's in Sacramento. I could say that it was Sacramento's only strongman gym. And I remember on my website, I even said, this is a gym for strongman, with strongman equipment. I said something like, we're not a CrossFit gym with a couple 100-pound stones in the corner or something like that. And so that started getting, more and more strongman started showing up. And then eventually, as the strongman community grew at Untamed Strength and I started to gain a little traction, once I got, started getting a little bit of money, I was able to buy things that powerlifters care about. I was able to buy nicer power bars. I was able to replace the junk squat racks I had with decent squat racks. And that started to attract some more powerlifters. And so I will say that Untamed Strength is a strongman gym, but we've got everything a powerlifter would need now as well. So I call it, a strongman and powerlifting gym. But primarily, I try to just kind of cater to strongman athletes.
How many members does the gym have?
Is it right now about 275?
Cool. For strongman gym, that's, I mean, if we're talking purely strongman gym, I know you said you got some powerlifters, but that's an excellent number to have. I know a lot of places, if they solely focused on strongman, they'd have 10 members.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And it was like that for a long time. I think that, looking back on my records, I actually had to figure this out for a question for helping out some guy. And I got my 10th member to sign up at Untamed Strength when I was open for 6 months.
Wow.
I got 6 months. I finally got 10 members. And I don't think I got to 20 until after a year. So it was very, very slow. But yeah, I think that for being I like the tighter, community atmosphere of Untamed Strength. If someone was to say, hey, I can bring you 300 more members this week, it would just be an absolute shit show. It'd be way too chaotic. It'd be like a 24-hour fitness.
It seems like you've got a proper community there, and it's
right.
People that are really into the sport, into what you kind of promote. Did I mean, as your YouTube page, was that started to try and help the gym, or was that something you were doing, separately?
That was for the gym, strictly for the gym. I used to record some videos of me training in the gym, and I post them on YouTube just for whatever reason. Nobody would watch them because nobody knew what this gym was. And I'd post some highlights of members at the gym. But it wasn't until, back in the day, I just ran out of ideas when I was trying to figure out how to get Untamed Strength going, how to get moving in the right direction and keep moving. And so what I would do every morning is write down 3 things that I'm going to do today to better Untamed Strength. And there were times where I'd sit there for an hour and just, I couldn't think of 3 things, cause I had done so many things. But even if it was, I'm going to go to my old high school and talk to the football coach, I tell him there's a gym, whatever. I would just write something down. And I remember at one point, I had wrote down, I'm going to make an instructional video, because I didn't have members to train. I didn't have very many members to train. So I thought, what if I make an instructional video about how to squat or how to deadlift? And I put it on YouTube, and maybe someone in the area will see the video and come to the gym.
Yeah.
It wasn't for monetization reasons. I had, probably 2 years into YouTube channel without being monetized. I didn't know you could do that. So it wasn't hey, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to get 1 million subscribers and make a bunch of money. It was, I'm going to make this video, this instructional video, and I'll post it on YouTube, just because I felt like I was doing something productive. And so I posted how to squat, how to bench press, how to deadlift, and how to overhead press video. And those really took off.
Yeah.
The how to squat video really, truly went viral and kind of blew up overnight. And then from there, it was just slow and steady, since 2013, making YouTube videos. So yeah, that's how it started out.
It's grown nicely now. It's a good sized page you got. It's very good. I think you got over 750,000 subscribers.
Yeah, something like that.
Closing in on that 1 million next.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It is, and just from doing something that just you love training, and you've built a really awesome community around Untamed Strength. It's awesome to see, and your videos are really, really good. Like I said, I've used a lot of them for my clients if they're not sure on how to do certain lifts. I keep getting told I need to do some instructional videos, but it's another thing on the list of things to do. So I can look through the internet. I was like, who's got the best one? So I've used a number of yours. So there you go.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That's pretty awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, they're very, very good. And not just, you look at a lot of YouTube videos. Some of them are very boring. You see people, there's no personality, and it's just like, this is how to squat, this is how to deadlift. And it's a bit boring, whereas yours are quite cool to watch. And it's certainly eye-catchy, especially with the look that you got going on there.
Yeah, I think that does help. Who the heck's this long-haired, long-bearded guy? I think
you sit down and listen to him, he's actually okay. He knows what he's talking about. It's so interesting. I mean, I've watched a number of your videos, not all of them, I've got to admit, but I've watched it a lot. And I know I want to ask you about your training philosophies, because it's a lot of the time when I've got people on, I ignore the actual training. I like to get the story of the people, but so many people keep asking about training advice and stuff like that. And obviously you're very good at that. And I've watched a few videos, and I've realized, okay, this he knows what he's talking about. And one of the things I always get, because people will see the typical kind of bodybuilding split of training and doing like a legs day and an arms day, or a chest day, a shoulders day. And when you're training for specific goals, like strength goals, you don't really think of your days split up like that, do you? You sort of, I mean, for me, I try, and when I'm coaching people, I try and focus on the basics, getting the basics right. So for a strongman, you've got to be able to, I believe, to be a good strongman, you've got to be able to squat, although some people avoid the squat. Deadlift is a must in strongman. You just picking weights up from the floor up to a standing position is just almost every single event that you do in strongman is bending over and picking something up. So deadlift is kind of staple. Overhead pressing is, genuinely very, very important. I do work on benching with certain clients, not every single one, but once you kind of cover those basics, then, and you get those really, really good, then it's quite easy to then, extend to how to pick up an atlas stone, how to press a log or an axle or a dumbbell or whatever it might be. And so I try and just focus on getting the basics as good as possible. And then everything is split around that. So rather than, like a back day, for instance, you have a deadlift day and then assistance movements around that movement. Same with legs. So it's not like a bodybuilding leg day. It's a squat day with assistance movements to build that. And, same with the pressing movements. And I've seen a few of your videos where you do the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I'd say my training approach has changed so much in, the past 10 years. Based on, just rolling with what you were saying, I think that when I met Josh Clark, that Marine in Washington, D.C., I was doing more of a bodybuilding type split of like you said, legs day, back day. And so he said, hey, stop focusing on muscles. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this is just what he said, stop focusing on muscles, start focusing on movements. And so you've got, your squat day, your deadlift day, your overhead press day, your events day. And so, at that point, that kind of changed my whole approach to training. And I thought, yeah, whatever I'm doing, I want it to increase my squat, or I want it to increase my deadlift. And that's why I was doing it. And so that kind of, was my first, I would say, introduction to powerlifting or strength training type training.
Sure.
And I think that when I started Untamed Strength, I didn't know very much. I only knew what I knew. And I thought that I kind of thought that I knew everything, because in my little bubble, it worked for me. And I didn't have much experience training anyone. I just opened a gym and I was going to learn from there.
It's quite a common thing. I can look back at myself 10 years ago thinking I knew loads back then, and I look back now, I think you knew nothing.
Yeah, right.
And I'll probably look back in another 10 years and, philosophies change and, training methods and, you're always trying to learn and progress and figure out, and being open-minded, I think, is important when you're training or coaching, and understanding that what you do might not work for someone else. That's sometimes people see things and they take it as gospel that you have to do it that way. And it's just not true. When you take the top 10 deadlifters in the world, for instance, they all do things slightly different. There's a lot of basics and fundamentals that are done the same, but then you watch them, really analyze them. They'll all be slightly different, whether it's just a slightly different stance position, different back position. It does. Body shape matters, and leverage matters, and people sometimes don't appreciate that. They'll see like Eddie Hall deadlift and think, I've got a deadlift like Eddie Hall. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly they realize that, well, they don't have that kind of brute quad power of Eddie Hall, who can blast weight off the floor, so they need a higher hip position. And it's understanding that we're all individual and learning the most effective way for your physique sometimes.
Yeah, I think that a trap that I fell into was just trying to find the right way to train. And, I would say I actually was certified as a starting strength coach. And I don't know if you know much about starting strength or Mark Ripito or whatnot, but they have a model. Sure. Starting strength is what they teach. Yeah. And I kind of, was of the thinking that this is the way, this starting strength is the way. And I fell into that to say that this is the only way to do it. But I think that as I've, over the years, I think that it's helped me to be more open-minded and realize there's actually a lot that I don't know. And there's a lot of ways to do things. Yeah. And I think that to say, well, what works, if I was to answer that question, I think that first and foremost, if you're coaching someone, what works is what the client or athlete is going to adhere to. So you really have to talk to them, I could, and it's no different than a diet. If I was to say, hey, Laws, you're going to eat boiled chicken breast, no seasoning, and white rice 3 times a day for the next, 6 months, you'd say, get lost. No, thanks. So even if I thought that was optimal, that was going to get you the best results, but you're not willing to do it.
That will get results if you can stick to it.
Right.
But it's not necessarily going to keep you interested. It's not going to keep you kind of being, looking forward to that next meal like you say, with the training, it's the same. If you're doing something again and again that you just hate, then eventually you're just going to say, sod this. I don't want to do it anymore. And I think a lot of people have lost that enjoyment aspect of training sometimes.
I think that, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, even like myself, sometimes when I've taken things too seriously, I've lost the enjoyment. And then I've not been as good in competitions. I've always done my best when I've just been having fun and enjoying it. And that's not to say I'm not training hard. Okay. Let's understand that, I can be very happy in training very, very hard, but sometimes the win becomes everything. And then you stop going, like we said earlier about how it was just fun to start. And sometimes you've got to get back to that. And I've been in that pull right now where I'm just sort of enjoying training again. And I'm suddenly thinking, oh, maybe I do want to compete again. And it's, I'm
Yeah.
not thinking too much about it, but I think I probably will do a competition, but just keep it for fun. And when I say fun, I'm still going to go to that competition when it finally happens, and I'll want to win because that's my
Yeah.
natural competitiveness coming out of me. But I know I see so many people now, even doing novice comps, that don't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting too much pressure on themselves. They're worrying about every single event, and they should be just enjoying this. For the 99.9% of us, this is a hobby.
Yeah.
You might one day climb up that ladder and be a pro and, go on to be one of the best athletes in the world. And that's brilliant. Have those aspirations, because there's no reason to stop you, but try and enjoy the ride. And that's what I've been trying to get across to a lot of clients that I have, and other people that ask me questions, because the amount of people that I've had recently coming up to me, been training 6 months, and they're like, you can just see they're not enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, it's fun. Enjoy it. We're
Yeah.
just lifting stuff up and putting it back down. That's all we're doing.
Yeah. I think that there's a kind of a spectrum of, on one side, enjoying training, and on another side, being optimal. And it depends on the client. If you had a client come to you, or a client come to me, that just had general goals of, I want to get bigger, I want to get stronger, I want to enjoy training, I feel like I've lost that, help me out. That's kind of a broad goal, and those are the easiest to program for. But someone with a very specific goal of, I want to win worlds, or
Sure.
I want to win this national competition, at that point, as a coach, okay, well, here are the things that you need to do. And we need to worry less about what you want to do.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. And so I think that, from the looks of it, just looking at your Instagram, it looks like you're working with a lot of really strong guys who are very competitive. And
I have
so
a
at
good
that
mix
point,
from complete beginners, or not complete, but beginners to international level athletes.
okay.
And I do, when they sign up with me, it's literally, we kind of go into these boxes of, okay, they just want to generally improve and everything, and they want to enjoy life, and they just want to get a bit better, or they want to be, for instance, Andrea Thompson, who's one of the strongest women on the
Mm-hmm.
planet. She's not very good, and she'll forgive me for saying this, she's not very good at being focused 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to be allowed to sort of go and blow out and have some time off and just focus on doing whatever she wants to do. And then she'll come back and she'll be like, right, for this next 12 weeks, this is my goal, and I'm focused. Mm-hmm. And when you have her in those 12-week blocks, you're going to get 100% out of her. But you have to let her have that time off as well. Whereas there's other people that just couldn't even afford to have that time off. She's just very, naturally gifted that she can do it. There's other athletes that are competing at a high level, but they've got to stay focused almost 98% of the time. I don't believe anyone's focused 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. We're never 100% focused on what we're doing, but when you have those goals to focus on, it makes a big difference. I'm very goal orientated. So if I have a target, it makes me a lot more focused. Whereas if I don't have a target, I'll come in the gym and be like, what shall I do today? What are you doing? I'll just join in.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and that's
when
that's fun.
Yeah, it is. And I had a session like that the other day. It was great. I had, loads of fun with it. But like you say, when you get those specific goals, and then I get these athletes that are, I really want this, but then they don't commit 100%. That's when I get frustrated.
Oh yeah.
If someone comes up to me and they say, they just want to get a bit better, they want to get a bit stronger, they still want to be able to go out on a Saturday night, or that's fine. I don't mind that, as long as you're honest. It's when they come and they're like, I want to be the world's strongest man. And then 2 weeks into the hard training block, they're giving up, or they're like whinging, or, that's the only time I get frustrated with people or clients, because there's very few people out there that when they say they really want something, they commit 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, guys like you see guys like Eddie Hall and Thor, you have to give them credit, because when they say they want something, they're going to go after it, and they're going to do whatever it takes to be the best they can be. And I'm happy to sit here, and I'm not willing to go to that level. I'm sort of like 80%. I've got other things that I just enjoy and focus on, but I'm okay with it. And I admit that to myself, and I admit it to people. But there's a lot of people out there that are still in that deluded area of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be the world's strongest man. And then 2 weeks into a training program, they're deviating or kind of missing sessions or missing meals or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's frustrating. You can only do so much as a coach. You can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink. And if they, you can't beat yourself up too much if they're just not willing to do it. But there was a time when I talk, I'm talking about local competitions and, nothing like you were doing, but there was a time where competing was just what I was doing. And so, hey, competition finished up. It was a crap competition, time to find a new one, time to do another, finish that one, time to do another, because at the, training for a competition was what I did. And just going to the gym was secondary. And it was a point to where I was like, I'm really getting tired of competing because I'm not doing that well. I'd like to put training as secondary and just going to the gym as my primary focus. And so, just going to the gym and, being productive. I'm not going to the gym and sitting around on my phone, but just kind of doing whatever I'd like, has made going to the gym much more enjoyable. And it's sad to see this year, especially, when competition was stripped from a lot of people, they just stopped training, I can't compete. What's the point in training? Granted, gyms were closing, but I knew quite a few people who had access to a gym, or had access to Untamed Strength, or who had access to their own garage gym, but because they couldn't compete their competitors first, they just don't train. And it's sad, to see, but I know that I would never be in that situation. If I have to train with one sandbag and that's all I had, I'm still gonna train, so because I just enjoy training. And I think that should be first and foremost, but
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I've trained since I was 3, not for strongman, obviously, but I've done something since I was 3. So I just can't imagine not training.
Mm-hmm.
I got to train for something, whether it's strongman, CrossFit. I did many different sports when I was younger. The thought of just sitting around doing nothing scares me.
Yeah.
And I actually, I'm sure you get this as well. I like the social side of the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably been the worst thing about this year, with gyms closing and people not being able to be in groups and stuff like that as much as normal. Because the gym for me is like my bar. I don't go to the pub and things like that. So my friends are in the gym training and we're just chatting, just messing around. I like those group sessions where you just go and have fun and lift some strongman kit and just have a fun day. It's always good. I'm sure you have
and
a
I
lot
think
of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of that, some people just don't really enjoy lifting weights, which is fine. And if it wasn't lifting weights, maybe they like riding their bicycle around town, or going to join a cycling team and riding around, or they like to go on a run, or they like to go play soccer, or go to the park and shoot hoops with the local guys. So for me, and for you, that comes in the form of lifting weights.
Sure.
I do know plenty of people and friends and family who I'm not going to try to convince them, like, you got to go to the gym. I love it so much. You're going to also. I encourage everyone to find something active, and if that, if you want to go play pickup basketball and that's what you do a few times a week, that's fine. So
I think that's a great way to look at it. Just finding things that you enjoy. It's funny because I'll see, I don't know if you ever get this, but sometimes you get like negative comments on various different things. You certainly do as a pro level strongman. Someone's always got something to say. And you'll get someone saying, "Oh, why do you do that? It's not, blah, blah." They say all sorts of stuff, but I tend to ignore it. But it makes me, I kind of laugh that they say it, because like you say, what's wrong with someone going to kick a football around on a field, or shoot some hoops, or whether it's go to the gym? If you enjoy it, if you don't like it, you don't have to come and do it. It's as simple as that. They just go and do what you like to do. It's just social media is very, very strange at times, or certain people on social media are very strange. But
it's wild. I've actually stopped, quite a while ago, stopped, completely looking at comments on my YouTube videos. I don't even look at them. And even when, recently with all the live streamed world record events, the first thing I do is, how do I close this chat? Just to get this thing out of here. It's just, the comments are just ridiculous. Even the comments that people were saying about Trey because he didn't do well on his deadlift, I'm like, get lost. It's just ridiculous. So I'm like, I got to get these comments out of here. These are ridiculous.
And those comments aren't coming from people that are involved in the sport. Right. It's just people just casually watching. that don't understand these guys, what they go through on a daily basis, and the sacrifice that they make. And I mean, I'm really glad to see Trey's now into World's Strongest Man this year, because obviously there was a little issue there, well, not issue. He just he was in as a reserve, but he's now officially in, which
He
is
is.
yeah,
Okay.
which is great to see.
That's
I
awesome.
this year is going to be very strange up until the last minute. I think World's Strongest Man list is going to keep changing.
Yeah.
So we'll see what
Is that
happens.
because people are just opting out, or is it? I'm sure you
I,
discussed this on the Strongman show.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Yesterday.
it's
I
to
haven't
do
watched
with
it yet though.
a lot of it is going to be to do with travel restrictions from certain countries.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure on how they're going to run Worlds this year. I'm hoping to have a chat with Colin Bryce and just pick his brain and see if he knows anything. But it's people are saying they shouldn't run World's Strongest Man. I think that's rubbish. I think we need to keep things going. People said that Europe's was weaker, and yeah, there were certain people that couldn't get there, but you need to keep these shows going. Just
Yeah.
because every single athlete can't get there, that's it's a shame, but it doesn't mean we should cancel the shows. It's I think that's ridiculous to just cancel the shows if we can make it happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Compete despite the circumstances,
Yeah, and I
so
know
I
that
100% agree.
I know all the guys are keen to get out there. They want to compete. They're training hard. So I mean, do you follow a lot of the top guys?
Yeah. I'm hoping this year that Brian wins just so we can see the 5 titles.
Yeah,
But
he's got a great chance this year.
Yeah. I won't be surprised if Mateusz Kielikowski takes it. But I do hope Brian wins. And there were some comments on one of Brian's videos. I shouldn't even look at comments, saying that if he wins, this year, he didn't really earn it or whatnot because this year was a fluke, and that is complete bullshit. Because
people
as you
always
know,
say something.
right. As you know, first off, this isn't his first title. This is his 5th title, and Brian has been to so many competitions and competed for so long that how dare you say he didn't earn it? It's just silly. But I hope he does, just so we can see the 5. I just know how bad Brian wants it, so
I'm
I hope he
interested to
does.
see what kind of shape he comes in, because if he comes in the shape we know he's capable of, you go back a couple of years when he was at his in his prime, let's say, he was an unbelievable strongman. And I think if he can bring that kind of shape now, with not having so many commitments this year, he's been able to train more, focus on this show. He's going to be hard to beat, especially with the events. They're great events for him. It's all going to depend on if he can be in that shape.
Yeah.
Because
I should say I really appreciate the banter between you and Marcus about this stuff, because I've been watching the shows, and it's true. It feels like a sports center for strongman, and so to hear you guys go back and forth, and even the videos you've made about can Brian win this year, can Mateusz win this year, they're great to get your insight.
I'm going to do a video on my sort of outsider, if you like, my not necessarily an outsider. Obviously, I think people just see Mateusz and Brian as the top 2 favorites, and I think rightly so.
Yeah, that'd be good.
When you look at the entries, they probably are the 2 favorites, but there's a number of other guys that are still a threat, and I'm going to do a video on who I think could surprise everyone as well. So
yeah, that'd be great. I look forward to it.
So with your own competitions, what's the highest level you've competed at?
It's all just local shows. People have I think it's people who don't know anything about strongman, but they assume that I'm some highly ranked strongman competitor, and just because they subscribe to the YouTube channel. They're like, no, I just compete locally. I don't know. I can't remember a time when I said to myself, I want to be the best. And I'm just being honest. I never said I want to be the best in the world, or I'm going to go to nationals and win. And I think that if you are going to do that, it's not going to be by chance. You really need to make your mind up. And I just really never had that. It was always, me having my own goals of some things I wanted to do, some numbers I wanted to hit, and then go to competitions and compete against the other guys was really it. Whoever was there on that day, I want to do better than them.
Yeah.
And that's really it. So that was it. And I've never had any desire to push towards nationals or whatnot, maybe. But yeah. So just locally.
Yeah. So, have you got any contests lined up, or is it just more focused on work right now?
Yeah, I wanted to do one this year. Didn't happen. But I'd like to do California Strongest Man, which goes every year in March.
Okay.
That's always a really fun competition on the beach. It should happen. But that's my plan, is to do that competition in March.
Awesome.
So, yeah, that was actually California Strongest Man was Martins used to compete in those competitions.
Yeah.
And so seeing him there back when he was a lightweight competing, with the heavyweights, but that was his training crew. And so, there's been plenty of California Strongest Man competitions that I've competed in where he's there helping, part of the
he's a cool guy as well.
Crew.
He just,
Yeah,
he's quite laid back. He's very approachable. He's for someone that's so highly, regarded in the sport. He's just a cool guy. You just have a chat with him. I really like him. I think it's a shame he's not doing worlds this year, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he wants to focus on getting in shape for the Arnolds next year.
Yeah, and that usually goes about same time, March.
Just after, isn't it? Yeah, it's March. Yeah, end of March time is normally then. So
what do you think personally? If Brian wins his 5th, you think he's just gonna? I'm done. Or you think he's gonna try to go for a 6th to set an all new number?
I don't
think he's still gonna go to the Arnold or what?
I don't know.
I know it's just speculation, but I'm just curious what you think.
It's an interesting one. I mean, I don't really think he's got anything left to prove, but I certainly understand why he wants a 5th to equal Mariusz Pudzianowski. But then if you've got the 5th, you're going to want to go and get the 6th, aren't you? So it's first thing he has to do is win the 5th.
Right.
It's all fun to talk about, but
I wouldn't ask him that question, but I feel like I could ask you, and
Yeah, no, it's a strange one. I mean, Brian's still. I think if he's at Worlds this year and doesn't, win or place top 2, I think he might have to think about packing it up.
Yeah,
and it's hard to say that because there's certain. I mean, you look at Zydrunas, probably the greatest of all time. And you see him compete now. And for me, who, when I was getting into the sport, Zydrunas was in his prime, was just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I was beating Zydrunas in comps and I was sad that I was beating him because it wasn't prime Zydrunas.
Right.
He was past his best. And I wouldn't want to see Brian in that position where he just kept going for the sake of, I can keep going. I've not won World's Strongest Man. I don't have a legacy of 4 World's Strongest Man titles, 3 Arnolds, probably one of the absolute greatest strongmen of all time. It's it's interesting when you see someone like Eddie who just retired on top. It kind of helps their legacy.
Right.
He's created this, wrongly sometimes, but people put him on such a pedestal that he's almost unbeatable. And
right.
When you kind of into the sport, that's not true when you look at the results that happened. But he was a great strongman nonetheless. But someone like Brian, you think you've probably I'd rate him along with Zydrunas as the best of all time. Mm-hmm. I don't really want to see him competing and placing 5th and 7th and slipping down the table. So I think he needs to give everything this year to get that win and then retire on top. That's what I would like to see. But whether it happens or not, there's a lot of hungry youngsters out there, and they just keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to when Michael Jordan retired and went and played baseball. Some people were kind of it's laughable. It kind of tarnishes your legacy a bit, and it's actually something you talked about with Anthony and the last interview. How fighters want to protect their record. They don't want all those losses to accumulate. So I understand that because he's done so well, he set this high expectation that he should keep it. Whereas, some people set their legacy in a different way, like Mark Felix. Everyone knows about Mark Felix because he's at every damn competition for so long.
Yeah.
And same with Terry Hollins. And so I guess it's kind of a different legacy in a sense.
So when I see Mark still competing, I'm like, I can't really retire, can I? This guy started before me. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and Mark was someone I looked up to when I was getting into the sport. just the longevity of the man. And I mean, he started late. He started at 37 years old.
Yeah.
And now he's still competing. I mean, he's going to World's Strongest Man this year. I think he's 54 years old.
That's
And
wild. It's impressive to me when I see, 50, 60-year-old guys in the gym, still working hard and busting their ass in the gym. But to see Mark Felix doing that at the very top level is wild. So
and Nick Best as well. Another,
yeah.
like, just looks great for his age. He's competitive. He enjoys it. And he's got that hunger to still want to keep going and keep getting better. You just got to respect that in them.
Yeah.
So good to see. It gives me hope as well. So you never know. You never know the comeback might happen. But despite, regardless of that, I'm definitely going to come over and train once things are better. I want to come over to Untamed Strength, have a training session together.
That'd be awesome.
Really good. Thank you, Alan, for coming on. I mean, most people watching my channel know who you are, but just for any that don't, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, Instagram or YouTube, Untamed Strength. And then if you're in the area, in Northern California area, and you want to come check out the gym, the website's trainuntamed.com. That's it. Strongman Powerlifting Gym. So come check us out.
I will definitely make sure I come and check it out. I'm planning, once things are better and traveling is easier, I'm going to go on a little tour traveling to different gyms all over. So it's going to be on the list.
Awesome. I'll be here and I'll be ready for it.
Excellent. Alan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. Please make sure you go and subscribe to Alan's channel if you haven't already, and I'll be back with more Talking Strongman soon. Take care. While you're here, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my awesome strength content.